Glitter Tiga versus SpaceGodzilla. We're in for it now, folks. We're in for it now. This is one hell of a fight. One hell of a fight, man. Oh boy. So after Demon Zoa defeated Ultraman Tiga, children all over the world turned into light and came in beaming to help Ultraman Tiga, filling him with more power than he's ever had in his very long life, transforming him into Glitter Tiga. Again, for all intents and purposes, Glitter Tiga is a super ultra. Like a Super Saiyan, he's like a super ultra man. Here's another shot of how all the children came together, and they're all basically inside Ultraman Tiga. Their light is empowering him to the point where this guy unleashed enough energy beams to send Demon Zoa flying back, not only blasting him off his many feet, but sending him crashing onto his back. Demon Zoa is like 200,000 tons. This guy's like as big as Biollante, at least as far as mass is concerned, and Tiga just blasted him so casually. He was also able, Glitter Tiga was able to fire similar levels of beams from his feet. So he not only can fire these immensely powerful energy attacks from his hands, he could do it from his feet. Presumably he could do it from, I don't know, his abs if he wanted to. But finally, Glitter Tiga channeled an attack. He tried his Zeppelian beam. I brought that up earlier in a previous slide, previous analysis. The Zeppelian beam actually did not work on Demon Zoa, even with his glitter power-up. Oh, right, by previous, it was in the Demon Zoa one we just did. Okay, cool. So Glitter Tiga channeled all the energy he had and struck Demon Zoa with so much power that it not only disintegrated him, it parted the dark skies above and completely removed Demon Zoa's darkness from at least the immediate area. Again, it's implied Demon Zoa's darkness covered the earth. I don't know if that statement should be taken at face value or not, because it's not like people have said things that were not hyperbolic before. It happens all the time. And again, I just point out the way I carry out this analysis is simple. If you make a statement and you want me to take it at face value, it needs to have some sort of empirical grounding. But we're not done with Glitter Tiga. After Demon Zoa blasted right through his chest with a high-powered energy beam, it looked like Tiga was dead. But then ancient giants from the millions of years past, they seemingly resurrected and their light converged on Ultraman Tiga. So now Tiga is not powered up by the children of the world, by the hope of the future of the human race. He's powered up by the ancient beings of his kin, by other ultras. This would arguably make him even more powerful than he was before. Here he's rushing, running across the ground, dodging Demon Zoa's energy needles. Here's another shot of that. I'll point out that Glitter Tiga is running in a straight line, so the point here isn't that he's really good at dodging things, dodging attacks. It's more like he can move really quickly, and that's before he takes flight, which he does here. And as we noticed before, as he did, Demon Zoa does indeed ensnare him with his tentacles and pulls him right into his body. Earlier, I talked about how I think Super Gudis bringing Destroya into its body would be a weakness. It would be a very bad thing to do. That's not a good decision. You chose poorly. That same logic applies here. As Gitano Zoa, Demon Zoa, absorbed Glitter Tiga, taking him inside, Glitter Tiga went perfect. I'm where exactly I want to be. And from inside the Lord of Darkness, this eldritch evil, Glitter Tiga unleashed a massive energy pulse that not only disintegrated Gitano Zoa, Demon Zoa, which was like a 800-meter size being at the very end, like took up the entire sky, but it also completely blew away all the dark clouds, all the things that were tainted by this evil. And more importantly, it seemed to destabilize the entire island of Rhea and caused it to collapse into the sea within moments. You could argue, I don't think Glitter Tiga's power, his attack did that. I think it's just because, hey, without the Lord of Darkness around, the island lost its, I don't know, its anchor, its controller, and that's who Gitano Zoa was technically keeping it up all this time, so you could maybe say this is more like a testament to how powerful Gitano Zoa is. I mean, the guy can raise an entire island, and when he dies, it falls down. What kind of power is that? The kind that might make me want to rethink my analysis on Gitano Zoa losing to Itsuno Hikosagami. But due to the fact that the island was up there before Gitano Zoa, Demon Zoa took form, before the resurgence, I think this is more attributed to Glitter Tiga destroying it outright. And all right. So as I was saying before, to show my nerd Godzilla street cred, SpaceGodzilla has always fascinated me, and for many years I took the liberty of analyzing and possibly overanalyzing this guy. I wrote a very detailed kaiju analysis article on Toho Kingdom. Again, the grammar sucks, but I brought receipts. I brought plenty of pictures and other information, calculations, analysis that hopefully would make it worthwhile. So feel free to check that out. But I'm going to cover some of that now. So SpaceGodzilla has a flying form, and as you can see, it's really quite impressive that he has control over his biology in such a way that he could just manifest crystals or turn back into more of a SpaceGodzilla land form that we'll see later. One thing you may not know, SpaceGodzilla is able to fire off these energy orbs that can travel through space faster than SpaceGodzilla can fly, and as soon as they made impact, they not only rocked the island called Birth Island, but it also destabilized the area to the point where even out in sea, Godzilla was awakened. These crystal fields help absorb cosmic rays, cosmic energy, so that they can store energy and help power SpaceGodzilla up whenever he needs it. I'm going to throw in a quick manga scan. Once more, the Heisei Godzilla series has a manga counterpart, and in the manga, SpaceGodzilla's landing, this is SpaceGodzilla just making impact, and he nearly nukes the entire island. To the point where even Mogera, who again, Mogera, my boy, my Robo Penguin, in the comics, this guy has a force field that can withstand insane levels of damage. And even he is completely and absolutely knocked out, just buried by the earth. SpaceGodzilla in the manga is a beast. He is so much more, I'd say he's way more powerful than even his live action counterpart by a very large degree. One day I'll cover him. We'll get into it. But back to live action goodness. Here he is fighting Megara in space. These crystals are pretty dang durable and sharp. Even though they're not piercing Megara right away here, they do eventually tear off one of his legs and sends the robot flying aimlessly through space forever. That's right, there are actually 2 Megaras in the movie. The first one here ends up being, well, lost in action, lost in space. And eventually, I guess, Japan, or the United Nations Godzilla Force had an extra one. Anyway, SpaceGodzilla can emit these electromagnetic pulses, which were scrambling Megara's electronic devices. I feel like this is worthy to make mention due to the fact that it's, SpaceGodzilla would be a real terror against robots, against mechs. We cannot forget his force field. Here, Godzilla is firing his atomic breath, and SpaceGodzilla creates a force field, a crystal shield that not only reflects and not only, deflects Godzilla's heat beam, it actually reflects it back at him. Bear in mind, this doesn't always happen. In fact, most of the time, Godzilla's beam just, deflects in different directions and never actually comes back at him, but this is still, I think, important. Another interesting thing is that SpaceGodzilla can actually manifest his force field to defend other objects. So the fact that he can, place it around Fukuoka Tower here suggests that he could essentially encase his entire body in it if he had to. Shortly after landing in Fukuoka, SpaceGodzilla basically came in the form of a massive energy sphere, which he then just sent circulating through the entire city and created a massive crystal kingdom. And then he pretty much turned Fukuoka Tower into a massive energy summoning, absorbing structure. Here's another shot earlier. I mentioned the crystal fields can actually supplement SpaceGodzilla with energy. Fukuoka Tower does the same here in this slide with SpaceGodzilla. So SpaceGodzilla not only already has enough energy, but he does, and this could be considered both a strength and a weakness, he does need to recharge. We don't exactly know, okay, is he summoning energy here because he's at 5% battery life? I don't think so. But it is worth mentioning, and there's an argument to be made that, if you manage to take out his crystals, you could potentially tire SpaceGodzilla out or burn him out so that he doesn't have enough energy to win the fight. SpaceGodzilla has an attack called the Gravity Tornado. It's not as cool as it sounds, and though it looks interesting and might have a paralysis effect on its target, it doesn't actually injure. It didn't really do much of anything to Godzilla here, but I felt like I needed to bring it up. Alright, so SpaceGodzilla can also turn his entire Crystal Kingdom into a weapon, as demonstrated here, where he is turning all these crystals into missiles, which he launched at Godzilla. I'll point out again, even though I don't have a slide of this, but as previously mentioned, SpaceGodzilla, while he's in his telekinetic, flying around here, he was telekinetically flying circles around Godzilla, just bombarding him repeatedly with corona beams. So it does give him a pretty good mobility advantage over most enemies. Here's an interesting shot. I touched upon this earlier. Megara not only has enough firepower to indirectly, without directly hitting Godzilla, Megara can indirectly knock Godzilla out with his energy attacks. Here, they not only do nothing to SpaceGodzilla, they also seem to be feeding him. So, opponents with energy beams striking SpaceGodzilla's shoulder crystals directly might actually give him energy. Well, it's a SpaceGodzilla analysis without talking about corona beams. SpaceGodzilla's corona beams are extremely dangerous. As I said before, they kind of have a mind of their own. They swerve around, striking multiple points at once. And yes, they do target weak spots. I'll talk about that more when we get to Megara, because it's a far better example. But here, they strike Godzilla in the shoulder, and yes, we can see it blows off a pretty hefty chunk of his shoulder. Space Godzilla's corona beams are highly dangerous, extremely powerful, and they pose a serious threat to pretty much everybody in this tournament. Okay, so here they are striking Megara, and yes, they do target several places. They swerve around. The corona beam, also, I forgot to mention, can branch off into smaller beams, striking even more areas. But here they are. This beam, like, hit Megara on our left, and then zigzagged around, just striking his chest, and then our right side of him. Here's another example of just how menacing this beam is. I mean, it's absolutely fearsome, and I really hope Space Godzilla makes a return to the upcoming Godzilla Kong Supernova film. Space Godzilla in the Monsterverse, let's go! As previously mentioned, he does target weak spots here, and we saw him earlier hitting Megara's left arm repeatedly. He does so again here after Megara successfully took out one of Space Godzilla, or if not one or both of his shoulder crystals. Space Godzilla retaliated by blasting Megara's arm right off, and I think Megara managed to get one more shot off if my memory serves, and after taking out both of Space Godzilla's crystals, Space Godzilla just skewered Megara with his tail, and again, Megara is like 160,000 tons here, guys. This is like more than twice Heisei Godzilla's mass here. And Space Godzilla, while dying, lifts Megara up and throws him like a toy. Space Godzilla, easily one of, if not Heisei Godzilla's most powerful opponent. Perhaps at another time we can talk about Space Godzilla versus Destroya, who I think would win. But for now, we'll carry on with this tournament and my analysis. It's possible that Space Godzilla survived. Not only is he a Godzilla clone, he's technically linked to Biollante. And after Heisei Godzilla's Spiral Blast disintegrated his body, Space Godzilla vanished in these balls of swirling light. So it's possible that he could have maybe survived. There are some alternate takes on this. I mean, Matt Frank's Stellar Godzilla Rivals versus Space Godzilla comic book, which I've covered on the channel in the past, could explain that it is a kind of alternate future, while not official to this film, as far as this film's canon is concerned. It could suggest that Space Godzilla may have survived. Ultimately, Glitter Tiga wins, even though I think Glitter Tiga's, there's no proof that his durability has increased, which means Space Godzilla's attacks will be tearing into him. Glitter Tiga is faster, just as strong, if not stronger, than Space Godzilla. His energy projection is easily equivalent to Heisei Godzilla's Spiral Blast, which only 3 shots were enough to kill Space Godzilla. Granted, Space Godzilla was dying, but I don't think even at full strength he would have survived more than 4 or 5 spiral beams. There's no proof that he could. I think Glitter Tiga wins this. He overwhelms Space Godzilla and makes it to the next round. If you agree or disagree, let me know. This one hurt a lot. I'm a big Space Godzilla fan. I am a Space Godzilla simp. Now, I will talk about this because it's been brought up before, but I will say again, I understand Space Godzilla's origins. G-cells drifted into a black hole and then emerged out of a white hole. G-cells then were exposed to supernova. They bonded with a crystallized organism, and such the most horrific monster was born. That is his official origin. I do not dispute this. I never have. Earlier, and indeed in the description box, I lay it out. I lay my case. Here is what's hyperbolic, what I find to be the most hyperbolic when it comes to power levels. When people try to say that Heisei Godzilla is star level or SpaceGodzilla is black hole level because, well, SpaceGodzilla was born in a black hole. I get the logic behind it and I understand the origin. I'm not disputing the origin. What I'm disputing is SpaceGodzilla's so-called black hole levels of durability. First off, he emerged out of a white hole. We don't actually know what that is. We also know that Godzilla cells are not durable enough to withstand this sort of thing by itself. Again, Dr. Shiragami was able to penetrate them with a syringe. We've seen bazookas pierce Godzilla's hide. He is not indestructible. Most certainly nowhere near being able to tank a black hole. That is insane, even for fictional characters. I will reiterate this so that it's very clear. SpaceGodzilla's origin, I recognize it. I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying there's an X factor. There is an unknown element. SpaceGodzilla is clearly not black hole levels of durability. Otherwise, Megara's drill shouldn't have been able to pierce his skin. His, spiral missile shouldn't have been able to disintegrate his shoulder crystals. Godzilla's Spiral Blast is not black hole level because, one, they didn't blow up the entire planet, which, if your beam is more powerful than a black hole, no planet should be anywhere near in sight. So, again, SpaceGodzilla's origins, totally, I recognize that. I'm not disputing that. What I'm disputing is whether or not we grant him black hole levels of durability because G-cells managed to drift through a black hole. I'm just going to say this, guys. There's an X factor here. We don't have enough information, and there's no evidence that SpaceGodzilla